everyone, welcome to another Music Talk Tuesday video, and today I thought it would be interesting to briefly address songs that are about soldiers. Since this is Veterans Day, I thought this would be a very interesting topic to cover and sort of pay tribute to those who have served our country, in particular my country, or any other country around the world over the years. So without further ado, let me sort of discuss some songs that are about soldiers. The first one that I wanted to briefly address is a more sort of traditional kind of patriotic song, and it's called American Soldier by Toby Keith. Now this song is in the genre of country, in that it does have all of these kinds of traditional American country vibes, at least from what I could tell by listening to the song, because it does display this really huge sense of pride and patriotism. There's a lot of heart to the song and a huge emphasis on having honor and dignity in serving one's country, in particular America, since the song addresses an American soldier, and it addresses it in the viewpoint of the American soldier. So as you will hear the vocalist singing, he says, "I am an American soldier," and I do put myself on the line, and I do take risks, and I'm willing to make that sacrifice, and so on and so forth. Those are the kinds of things that ultimately the song expresses. So it does have this real sense of passion that is generated towards being more of a symbol of I guess you could say just the and there's just a sense of pride associated with the song that I think in the one sense some people can interpret as being glorifying, but I don't really think it addresses it on that level. I think it just goes onto the level of just being fairly down to earth, and to the point where I could see somebody who would have this kind of viewpoint and would carry this badge with sort of a sense of pride and dignity and heart. So I think that's kind of what this song ultimately addresses and what it focuses on. It tries to display the American soldier as someone who is sort of a hero and takes that takes the risks and is willing to put himself on the line and ultimately make sacrifices for the sake of others. And that's sort of what is, I think, why America as a country in particular is so tied with our military. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they were willing to go to such lengths, and I'm sure it's the same probably for any country, but I think it tries to delve into that American sort of culture by again expressing it through patriotism and through country music, and in particular country music I think ends up being probably the most patriotic, because usually country focuses a lot on that aspect of America, that sense of pride and patriotism. So I think this song is definitely worth a recommendation if you are interested in one that's maybe not as maybe dark, but is more of heart and strength. So that's kind of what ultimately the song says. But I think that's really all I can say about it, so I will move on to the next song. The next song that I wanted to briefly address is called Goodnight, Saigon by Billy Joel. Uh, what, a, what I find interesting about this song, unlike the American Soldier song that I just previously mentioned, is that this song discusses soldiers as sort of a group. It doesn't address one soldier specifically, although I think it is addressed within a viewpoint of one soldier. There is this sense of togetherness, and you'll sort of see this within the lyrics if you choose to listen to the song. But also, it describes again the hardships and the trials and tribulations and the horrors that are associated with war. And even though Billy Joel really wrote the song for the Vietnam War, and I think there is one lyric that specifically addresses a location um, that I think cannot probably be associated with any other war, although maybe it could. I am not sure, but despite that, I think it still serves as a general sort of overview as to what ultimately a soldier goes through, and I think soldiers usually do form a sense of togetherness. They do have a real strong, tight knit bond with one another that they develop as they go through their um, journey. And this song really describes itself within a journey because you have sort of the beginning where actually helicopter sounds are played, and then you have sort of the lyrics that express the sort of story of the soldiers, and then you have the ending, which again re-emphasizes the helicopter's noises at the end. So again, it kind of it can be interpreted as usually sometimes when you see soldiers within movies, they'll go down from a helicopter and then they'll be taken away by a helicopter. So that's kind of the that was kind of what I think Billy Joel was going for, this sense um, of a beginning, middle, and end. And I think it works to the song's advantage really well. And there is a lot of passion within the vocals. There is a lot of heart to it, and again, it doesn't feel really patriotic like a American Soldier does, but it really does have this real sense of sticking together and trying to push on and try to do whatever it takes to ultimately survive and stay together. That's kind of the feeling of the song, and what I think is something that a soldier could go through um, during any kind of conflict that arises. So that's kind of the real heart of the song. It's more about um, the bond between soldiers and the willingness to go through such harsh circumstances together, as opposed to American Soldier, which is a little bit more individualistic because, again, it focuses on one soldier in particular and is more patriotic. So, that being said, the next song that I wanted to briefly address is The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down by the band. This song addresses itself in the point of view of Virgil Caine, who was a Civil War vet for the South, and I guess he ended up experiencing starvation and near death in 1865 when the South was bombarded by the North. I think this was really at the point where the war was pretty much set in stone as to who was ultimately going to triumph, and there is this sense throughout it that it's trying to sort of paint a picture of what this person was going through, and what ultimately was a result of history, and that's kind of what the title expresses. Um, the when they say the night they drove old Dixie down, that's basically sort of saying, yeah, they basically, I remember the day when they destroyed the South, and since it's addressed through Virgil Cain's viewpoint, you can kind of get the sort of feeling that he has, and that feeling is one of really, I guess, huge sort of disappointment, I'd say, because within the song you really do feel like the way the vocalists express the um, lyrics is through sort of disappointment and um, feeling bummed out. Like it almost doesn't really sound too dark or too grim, but there is this sense of huge there just seems to be this sense of real frustration and kind of, you know, just disappointment in not being able to sort of, I guess, be in a better state, because it doesn't really sound all too I mean, it does sound a little bit depressing, but it doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like it's really horror filled or very tragic, at least within the instrumentals as well as within the the lyrics. Although I would say that the lyrics focus more on trying to tell Virgil's story, which is a little bit more grim. But at the same time, the southern sort of soul makes it sound a little bit more, I guess, cheery. But then there is this sense of huge, uh, just sheer gripping kind of hit on the head disappointment, and that's kind of what it sounds like, especially when the vocalists emphasize certain words like um, the night they drove old Dixie down. Like when they say down, it's like, you know, it's like a nail on the head. It just hits you so hard with how, oh, just how painful. So there is, I think, this sense of maybe, I guess you could say, edginess within the song that makes it sound very, you know, just just this, it just sounds very harsh, I guess you could say, maybe, and cruel at certain points, but it doesn't sound very depressing. And I think a lot of that has to do with, again, sort of the genre. It's 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 again, it's not something like American Soldier, where it's very it's kind of upbeat patriotic country. It's this is more southern, like, I think more, I guess, bluegrass, you could say, um, especially with the emphasis on the harmonica. It's it gives it gives off a very different feeling, and I think it really works to the song's advantage, and I think it becomes one of the more memorable songs as a result. And I think it's definitely worth a recommendation if you're interested in that kind of a way of approaching it. A song about a soldier. So that's all I think I can ultimately say, though, about that one in particular, because it's sort of hard to explain. You almost have to listen to it in order to understand the kinds of, you know, instrumentals that they were going for. But I think it's definitely worth listening to if you are interested. Now, the other song that I wanted to briefly address is called Rooster by Alice in Chains. Now, the vocalist Jerry Cartrell had a father who served in Vietnam, and within the music video, it'll actually show you Jerry's father talking about the war, and also Jerry talks a little bit as well too, and that I found to be very interesting, and sort of shows you what the vocalist was really trying to showcase. Um, and basically, the reason why the song is called Rooster is because that was his father's nickname throughout the Vietnam War, and it's told through his father's perspective, and his viewpoint, at least throughout, is really just describing the various things that he went through, and how he ultimately wants to get away and get out of this um, horrible circumstance that he was put into. And there is this sort of edge to it. I would say a lot more edge than the previous song that I mentioned by the band. It's a lot more. Um, it's a lot more rock and roll based, and you do really feel like the sort of adrenaline and the pain at the same time. And I think that's really something that um, soldiers can go through, is this sense of um, of of feeling not only loss, but in fear and panic. And I think this edge sort of expresses that aspect, I think, fairly well. And I think it works well to the song's advantage in creating this very um, just very horrifying picture. And I think it works out really well. And I think Jerry wanted to ultimately express what his father went through, and I think he did his father a service by making this song sort of for him, um, and showing basically the the world his sort of interpretation of what his father went through. So I think that's something that's very interesting, and definitely worth recommending if you are interested. Now, the last song that I wanted to briefly mention is called Harry Patch in memory of, or I guess in memory of Harry Patch, although all the times I've looked it up, it always said Harry Patch in memory of, inserted in parentheses in memory of. And this is by Radiohead. Now, Harry Patch was a soldier. He was the last, I guess, UK soldier that survived, or I guess soldier veteran, that survived World War One. So he is the oldest, I think, too. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's over 100. I think he's really old. He's like, oh, he's probably 109 now. I'm not sure if he is still alive, but he was alive when Radiohead made the song. But apparently he's been um, really he's been, I guess, sort of out in the uh, out in the public for some time. I think uh, when Britain has their sort of memorial time for those who I think served in World War One, he would always be there, and I think he even shared his experience. I think he was open to sharing his experiences, I guess. So I think there's a lot of people who recognize the person, at least maybe probably more so in Britain than in the United States. But I think he is one that Radiohead felt a connection to, I guess you could say, because I think they did, I think, talk with him at least, or have seen others talk with him, and sort of got inspired to write this song. But basically, there's sort of violin instrumentals that go throughout in the beginning, and these really set the mood for the song because they really do give you this very haunting and sort of horrifying picture. Um, and then throughout the song, it discusses in the viewpoint of Harry, and it really gives you that haunting image throughout, not only through the instrumentals but also through the lyrics. Um, Although I think it's hard to interpret or really grasp what the vocalist of Radiohead is saying, because his voice is very high pitched throughout, so it's really hard to understand, or like it's hard to, I think it was hard for him to enunciate the words, so I literally had to find some videos to look up what he was saying. But I think if you listen closely, you can make some words out. But ultimately, even though the lyrics are relatively um, vague, because again, although I think it's doing it in the viewpoint of Harry, because it's because in the beginning it says, I was the only one, sort of paraphrasing here, who survived. So it is trying to take in that viewpoint. It's also kind of expresses to the sort of harshness and cruelty of war, but I think at the same time it does it in a way that's um, again sort of um, on the one hand very sad and heartbreaking, but also one of um, of just, I guess maybe appreciation, I guess is maybe the proper word to use here, because I felt like that Radiohead uh, felt a sense of appreciation for Harry, and I think that's why they decided to write this song for him. So again, I think that's why you see sort of a kind of beauty associated with the song, because the vocalist does sound fairly high pitched, and he does kind of give off this kind of angelic sort of feel. So, which is really in sharp contrast to the instrumentals, which are very kind of sad and depressing and dark and grim. So it has this mixture and this blend that I think ultimately really works and gives off, I think, a sense of what a soldier would feel in those circumstances that are sort of described within the lyrics. So I think it's definitely one that stands out and is worthy of recommendation if you are interested in such a song. But those are all of the songs that I have for this list. I'll be sure to put all of them in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and Veterans Day. And to all of those veterans out there, I appreciate your service and all of the sacrifices that you were making, that you made and are still maybe making. Um, and I hope that this video was very informative and interesting to my audience members. But I think that's really all I can say. And goodbye.